Yona of the Dawn is an action-adventure series with elements of romance and comedy, set within a fantasy world which was heavily inspired by ancient China and Korea. Our protagonist Yona lived a very pampered life. As princess, she knew nothing of the suffering of the outside world until the day her father was assassinated by the man who was her childhood friend, true love, and also her cousin. Yona's father was an emperor of terrible reputation, being known as the Cowardly King. He sought peace but lacked the knowledge to obtain it. Because of him, many lives were lost in war. Also responsible for his own brother's death, which is the motivation for Suwon's betrayal. To survive, Yona leaves the castle with her bodyguard and General Hawk to face the elements, living in the wilderness until they hear of the legend of the four dragons. Then they seek out to obtain their help in order to reclaim the kingdom and avenge her father's death. And I know, it sounds like I just spoiled the crap out of the series, but trust me, all of this happens pretty early on. It pleases me to say that Yona of the Dawn places world building and character development far above anything else. The character of Yona naturally develops from being spoiled to becoming self-sufficient. She gradually overcomes obstacles such as adapting to living in the forest. At night she trains with bow and arrow until her hands are blistered. This character not only wishes to protect her friends, but she wishes to stand beside them as equals, as a person who's able to pull her own weight. Hawk was another interesting character. Former general and bodyguard of Yona, he's deeply in love with her, and I felt his character had a bit of depth because you see him struggling with his feelings for her, trying to keep them inside because he realizes how grave this situation truly is, and he knows that he has a greater duty to uphold. Unfortunately, Hawk was one of the least developed characters in the story. Some of my favorite characters in the series were the dragons. In this world, there are 4 people who are born with the legendary power of dragons, and it is their destiny to assist their lord and reunite the world. These dragons come from various backgrounds. Some are treated as lords, some are seen as monsters, and some leave their home altogether to choose a life of their own. Because these dragons have contrasting personalities and were characterized so well, giving them 2 episodes of introduction where we learn about them and also see their history as well, it feels like Yona's party is filled with living people. There's also Yoon, who is useless in combat but will quickly become one of the more favorable characters after you learn about his history. There were only 2 characters in the series that were poorly developed, Suwon and the Yellow Dragon. The Yellow Dragon was only given half an episode of introduction. This is almost excusable, seeing as how this was the last episode. I felt like the director wanted to find a good stopping point for the series in order to pick back up for season 2. Hopefully we get one. However, Suwon has no excuse. As the main antagonist, he receives so little development, and the only backstory that we learn of him was told from Yona's perspective. Furthermore, after this initial assassination, we see him so little for the rest of the series that we still know nothing about him. I can't tell if his words are all fake and he's secretly scheming, or if he's just got the personality of a Pop-Tart. Outside of the characters that were developed properly, which was in fact most of them, we get to see a very large and beautiful world. But not only is it just beautiful, but we get to see so much of it. We learned about how their government works. We see different aspects of the kingdom and the empire. We see different towns and cities, and we see them interact with each other that aren't really a part of the major overlying story, and it felt like it was just this living world. I felt they did a great job of world building. The action itself was also enjoyable, as each of these dragons embody a special skill which allows them to take on many enemies at once. Considering that this is a fantasy, it's normal to see certain characters in a series that are so legendary like this, and I really liked how they limited bodyguard once the dragons were introduced. The only major complaint I have about the combat is how whenever Yona gets into a struggle with somebody, she always has these fearful eyes, these eyes of a beast that will scare away everybody around her, and I felt that this was detrimental to her character development. Instead of showing the fruits of her labor in her combat training, she just uses these eyes and gets away so easily. I'm not saying that Yona should have killed characters that started a fight with her, but she should have at least had a struggle to defend herself and ultimately win, maybe with the aid of others, but it's something that I felt would show off her progression a little bit more. The pacing of the story was smooth, but it was ultimately limited by how short the series was. This was only 24 episodes for this first season here, and they told such a grand story here of developing so many characters and showing so many characters' history, and they do so much within these 24 episodes that they don't really have enough time to develop certain characters that need it. Technically, this is considered a shoujo, and usually in shoujos men are developed the least, but in this case I know that they can create well-developed characters, so I really don't think they have an excuse outside of just time constraints, because the story does so much in so little time. I'm gonna know a bit more about the main antagonist here, the betrayer. You're gonna want to know more about that, but I felt that they did what they could with the constraints that they had. Maybe they could have cut back on the comedy a bit, but there really wasn't an overpowering or overwhelming amount of comedy to even cut back on to begin with. So if you've seen Yona of the Dawn, then let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all my latest anime reviews and discussions. Also, be sure to check out my anime review playlist and also my top 10 favorite anime series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all of your support with the likes and comments, and I'll see you next time.